What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Costa, and tonight we have a fantastic episode in store for you guys. We are in the Koffler Center, and if you guys are watching this on video, we have one of the coolest displays we have ever done. It is pitch black in here. We got some LED lights making this thing look super nice, and for anyone watching, we got this brand new camera that we're using for some of our broadcasts, so it looks really nice in here. I'm really excited for what we have in store for us, but before we get started, we're going to be talking about Ime Udoka leaving the Boston Celtics to go to the Brooklyn Nets, the relationship that's going on there, how the Celtics players are reacting to all this news. We're going to also talk about Kyrie Irving being suspended by the Nets for his comments that he's made recently, and so much more. But before we do that, I want to welcome back a guest to this show who has made many appearances before. He is a good friend of mine, and he recently just celebrated his 22nd birthday. So without any further ado, please welcome back to the show, the one and only Jake Marchand. Jake, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Brian.
Absolutely, Jake. I'm glad to have you back on the show. Obviously, I know you're a big NBA fan, and you said to me, like, hey, once the NBA season runs around and some storylines get going, let me know. And I was like, all right, we'll do. I'll have to see kind of how this NBA season shapes up. Regular season maybe takes a while for some storylines to happen. No, we are getting thrown right into the fire right away.
In the thick of it.
It's some kind of hairy issues. So we're going to try to tread lightly with this. But before we obviously get all that started, I want to say, if you guys are not following Down the Wire at this point, what are you guys doing? We're available everywhere you guys can stream podcasts, whether that be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, and more. You can also watch this stream on YouTube, and you can find all of the links in our Instagram at down.tothewire. Now, Jake, obviously, the big story that broke this week was Ime Udoka, former Celtics head coach, led them to the NBA Finals this past year. Now, some situations kind of came up throughout this offseason, allegedly, and there was some significant proof to it, I guess, that Ime had a inappropriate relationship with a fellow coworker amongst the Celtics, and the Celtics promptly suspended him for the season. Now, the Celtics basically said, hey, if any other team wants to offer you up a position, they're free to do it, but you are not going to be the coach for us this year. And that's the decision that they made. And now Ime is going to be going to our rivals, the team that we actually beat in the playoffs this past year, the Brooklyn Nets. And my God, are they a dysfunctional franchise to go to? But when you heard this news, what was your immediate reaction?
I was honestly pretty surprised, but I find it kind of funny that this story is breaking recently, because I was actually at Dunkin' with our friend Ethan earlier this week, and I saw on Instagram there was a possibility of Ime going to the Nets, and I was like, I don't know why, but I feel like it's going to happen. And it did. I mean, especially with the stuff going on with the Nets right now as an organization, you kind of have to question the ethics in this play,
No, yeah, it absolutely blew up really quickly. And I mean, it all kind of just snowballed out of nowhere. I know that looking at things, particularly for the Celtics, it was like, oh, like the Brooklyn Nets have fired Steve Nash, because that's how this whole thing got started. Yep. And I was like, all right, you can put some of the blame here on Steve Nash, because a lot of people said that he may not have kind of the skills that would work for him to come into this league and be a good head coach. There were other people that thought there could be other people for this position, but Steve Nash got the job, and evidently he was subsequently fired from it. So people were blaming him for that. And now they look at Ime as a potential guy to come in and remedy the situation and basically say, all right, you fixed the Celtics. You got them to a championship caliber form. We have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Ben Simmons, who I'm not too high on Ben Simmons, but yeah, it's like, hey, we have these guys. Maybe you can fix us. I don't know how I feel about all this. I mean, listen, I think Ime Udoka is a great head coach. Obviously, it's ridiculous. It sucks that, the situation that happened with him went down, but you can't really do anything about that. I think that Joe Mazzulla is doing a decent head job for being a first-year head coach, the youngest head coach in the league. So He's doing a fantastic job. Also a Rhode Islander. So can't really hate that. But I don't know. This has been a very interesting situation. And while I think that the Celtics were a good job for Ime to fix, and I think he did a great job fixing them, the Brooklyn Nets are another animal. I mean, listen, Kevin Durant is a great player, but he has his issues off the court. Kyrie Irving, we're going to get into him in a little bit. He has his issues off the court. And then obviously Ben Simmons. A lot of people are thinking that Ime Udoka may be able to fix Ben Simmons because Ime has some experience with that Philly group. He actually was a coach there in previous years. So maybe there's a chance that he can unlock Ben Simmons. But my big take with Ben Simmons is that the man doesn't want to shoot the basketball. He is content doing his thing, and it irks me. I'm done with him at this point because, listen, man, Andre Drummond learned how to shoot a three-pointer.
Yeah.
Like
right.
if anyone was not going to be able to learn how to do it, it was Andre Drummond, because there was literally, they had to take him out of games because he couldn't make a free throw.
Yeah.
Now he's hitting threes. Look at guys like Brook Lopez out in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
He couldn't hit like the ocean from a beach. but now he's actually like a really solid three-point shooting center. So I don't know why Ben Simmons at least can't have like a decent three ball. For him, it's just all layups. And I don't know.
I feel like part of it is almost like a mental block. Like, I don't know
Absolutely.
if you saw like any of his like the footage on Instagram or like Twitter or whatnot online of him like training over the summer. He was making threes. I saw some videos of him making like 7, 8, 9 3-pointers in a row. And he can do it. He just needs to adapt his play style. You know, like you were kind of mentioning with Brook Lopez and Andre Drummond, you know, we need stretch bigs.
Yeah.
That's just how the league is. It's kind of at a point where it's unacceptable for a big to have a wide open three in a corner and not be able to take it and at least have a good shot. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's definitely tough. And I'm interested to see too, as well, like you were saying, if Ime is going to be able to actually fix it, because the Nets are a whole different beast right now for Ime.
Exactly.
So, and you have to consider too, like he has all the drama regarding the scandal, like still like not behind him. He's going to have his first press conference for the Nets, and that's going to be interesting.
That's going to be a wild press conference. He's going to get a lot of questions there. Now, obviously, there's the issue with Ben Simmons in his lack of shooting. And, you know, again, we'll talk about Kyrie Irving and his personal situations, but there's also the play style issue with Kyrie Irving, to where, you know, he's typically a very ball dominant point guard. And Ben Simmons, you know, kind of became that point god, like point forward type in Philly, where the ball also runs through him. So I noticed in the first couple games throughout the year, the Nets were struggling to figure out, all right, who's going to be the facilitator here? Who's going to be taking the shots? And I think the most successful way you can do that is to have Ben Simmons play the 1, Kyrie at the 2, because I think that just works better. I mean, Kyrie has ungodly handles. Like he is
insane.
Like he's amazing, like handling the basketball. But I think Ben Simmons is solid enough to facilitate being in that 1 spot. And really, you can't put him anywhere else. Well, you can put him down low and he can probably defend decent enough. But in terms of offensively, there's nowhere else you could probably put him to where he could be, you know, most utilized.
Oh yeah, well, and I feel like it's kind of like a size advantage too at the 1.
Oh yeah,
I mean, a lot of like 1s are typically like at best like 6'5", 6'6". Ben Simmons is what, like 6'9", like
6'9", 6'10",
6'9", 6'10". He's got some height on him, so that's definitely an advantage having him at the 1. But yeah, a lot of issues with the Nets, and especially like you were saying, you know, hero ball. Everyone wants the ball to run through them. They want to control the flow of the whole game, but when you have 3 superstars that are all trying to do their own thing.
Yeah, Ben Simmons is 6'10", by the way. So I mean, you have a 7-footer running that. It's ridiculous. And I mean, if you want to look at the size of the Nets, you have KD, who, you know, he's listed as 6'9", which is a blatant lie. I'm sorry, that is a blatant lie. But I don't know. I think that this entire Nets organization, they are falling to pieces right now. This is one of the most this is one of the ugliest situations I've seen with a franchise in some time. I've never seen it be this bad. I mean, the only thing that comes close to me is like the 2011 Red Sox, and I hate to mix sports on you, but it would be, I remember with them, they were considered to be one of the most like elite teams that year. And then they had their whole chicken and beer incident where, you know, where it was like, oh, players are kind of mouthing off in the clubhouse. They've kind of lost the team. And then they had that great collapse that ended their run for a postseason. You know, for a postseason bid. And I'm just like, this isn't even close for the Brooklyn Nets. They're not even bad enough to where it's like funny. It's like, what is wrong with these guys right now? It's like, this is something completely different. And I mean, I don't know if I have to be honest with you, I don't know if Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are going to get through this full season together. I feel like one of them might end up going out the door just because of how toxic it's gotten.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's so much going on. You have to think too, like, they're not, I mean, with the exception of Kyrie currently, but like they're still paying these players. They're pumping out millions and millions of dollars to them for a horrible season and like poor leadership style, like, you know, lack of like a team. They're not a team. They're just 3 individuals just trying to do it themselves. So,
I mean, and if you look at what Sean Marks has done here, obviously, you know, credit him enough for being able to get these players in here. And it's a shame the fact that they're not able to work together. I mean, he was able to put together that trade to get James Harden to Brooklyn and evidently ended your run as a Houston Rockets fan. But I mean, he's able to do that. And I just don't understand like how it's ended this poorly. I mean, the Brooklyn Nets, when they blew it up and, they acquired, KG, all those guys from the Celtics, and they gave us that entire load of draft picks. It was like, all right, we're going to suck for a little while after this happens. And then we're going to be able to build it right back up. And they looked like they were going to have one of the most potent teams ever.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of turned into that like 1990s Houston Rockets situation where it was like Charles Barkley, Scottie Pippen, forgetting the other guy. It's Clyde Drexler.
Yep.
And it was just like, wow, like these guys are an absolute, it looks like they should be an absolute wagon.
Oh yeah.
But instead they just fell apart and they were just disappointed everyone. And that's what the James Harden era of that big three became. And I'm sorry, throwing Ben Simmons in there, trying to act like that's an equal piece to a big three. I get that James Harden didn't work out and they only played 16 games together, but that's a piss poor excuse. I'm sorry.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. And it's actually kind of ironic seeing how well James Harden's doing this year. I mean, he just had like a foot injury that I think got released like today or yesterday. He's out for a minimum of a month, but he was like scoring a lot of like 26+ point games, like for the 76ers first few games of the season. And that kind of goes all back to the hero ball, the big three that just clash with each other for attention and, controlling the flow of the game. So interested to see who is going to be kind of pushed out of the Nets and will they flourish on another team?
Yeah.
Maybe not, but it's going to be interesting to say the least.
Definitely remains to be seen. Obviously, we had tons of headlines this offseason about like either Kevin Durant or Kyrie being traded. Now we have this whole situation with Kyrie Irving and his I thought the craziest thing Kyrie Irving would ever say is that the earth is flat. I really thought that was going to be it, but we get thrown yet another curveball. And obviously this is a very sensitive thing, but Kyrie Irving was suspended, I guess, it hasn't been determined yet how long he's going to be suspended, but the Nets say it's going to be no less than 5 games and without pay for failure to condemn anti-Semitic comments. Now, obviously, Kyrie's had many different like controversial things in the past. He didn't get vaccinated and wasn't allowed to play in Barclays Center to start the year. I don't get into that typically on my show. That's your own deal. But this is something different. And I know from what I know, like Kyrie, he basically shared a link to a documentary containing some very anti-Semitic tropes. Now, I know the documentary is on Amazon and people are trying to say, well, if it's on Amazon, like how can it be profitable for, one company, but not for this person to share it? And I don't know, but the fact that it's gotten to this point where Kyrie just can't say, hey, yeah, I was wrong. And he has to turn to, well, man, in the greater scheme of things, there's a motive, there's a method for everything. I'm like, dude, stop with your platitudes. Just like admit that you're wrong and just move on with your day. And he can't do it.
No, he can't. His ego is too inflated and he's just like too big to admit that he's wrong.
No,
honestly.
And I mean, listen, he thinks he thinks the earth is flat. So he probably thinks he's at the center of it. And it's ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. When it comes to Kyrie, man, I mean, when he was in Boston, it seemed like it had chilled out for a little bit because, things got a little bit toxic over in Cleveland. It was like, oh, like, wow, like things are flying off the rails with this guy. And then he came to Boston for a couple years and it was like, all right, maybe the team isn't doing so hot. And like, we were disappointing ourselves every now and then, but it was kind of getting held together. There were some comments here and there that made you go, ugh, I don't really know how I feel about this. And then evidently he left. He promised that he was going to stay with the Celtics and then he didn't. And he's like, oh, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to play in Brooklyn. And it hasn't gotten any better. He tries to like burn sage and like TD Garden to get rid of demons. He steps on Lucky the leprechaun after like certain things. And I'm like, all right. Then he's like trying to like throw like Boston fans under the bus for like being racist towards him. And obviously, I know there's a history with that, but again, he's just had multiple incidents now, like with different guys. And it's like, all right, you gotta like, he has to cut it out at some point. And he doesn't know when to just say die. Like
he doesn't.
No, it's ridiculous.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut
you off. Go ahead.
And part of it too is like, he's lowering his like trade value.
Yeah.
If he ultimately wants out of this team, which might be a possibility for him based on how things are currently going, what team's going to want to pick him up?
Yeah.
All of this crap that he's pulling, no one's going to want that. That's going to reflect poorly not only on him, but whatever organization he moves on to next, if given the opportunity. So he's just untouchable now.
Honest to God, Jake, I really think that all teams at this point have no morals. I mean, I saw today in the news, I don't know if you saw this, but the Boston Bruins ended up picking up this guy, Mitchell Miller. And I got to tread lightly with this topic, but this guy apparently, I like back in like 8th grade and like for like his childhood, he like tormented like this like disabled kid and like did a bunch of like messed up stuff. And it's like, oh my God, like who would ever want to take a flyer on this guy? And the Bruins are like, oh yeah, we'll sign him. And it's like, why would you do it? And, they see some element of talent in the guy, and they go, well, it's worth it. And I'm like, no, it's not. But that's what teams see with Kyrie. And they probably go, well, he might be, literally insane, but goddamn, can he shoot a basketball? And that's what people see at the end of the day. And it's like, all right, like that's the part that's like, there is no morality anymore. It's just all about the talent. And listen, I get that teams are trying to win. It's win at any cost possible. But you do have to kind of just like, level yourself at the end of it.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of funny that you mentioned morals, because with the whole Kyrie Irving situation, with the Nets issuing a statement, it's funny because Adam Silver runs the whole league.
Yes.
And he was kind of whispering in the ear of the GM and owners of the Nets. He wasn't controlling the situation. He was whispering in their ears from the background. And that just goes to show too that like it's a game driven kind of game. Like, it's money talks and numbers don't lie, and everything else, morals are pushed to the side. If we're in a position right now where Kyrie Irving's doing this and there's no repercussions except from the public, and Adam Silver's just kind of whispering about it and quietly like, hey, can you get him to apologize? Like, and there's no infrastructure to actually facilitate like proper treatment among players and how they act.
No, and I mean, the NBA's never been known to have morals either, especially recently. I know that, I mean, being a Rockets fan, you remember the whole situation when Daryl Morey was condemning China for their inhumane like practices and like kind of like the situation going on there. I know the specifics of it, but I'm just going to keep it very like bland right now. But, Adam Silver tries to like, basically Daryl Morey says all these things about like China, and, the NBA just like comes down on him hard and says, hey, you need to like walk this back, and was forced to like, they basically cudgeled him until he finally till eventually he somewhat apologized. And it's like, geez, like that's the hill you're willing to die on here just because you can make a couple extra bucks over there. So listen, it's all money based, it's all talent based, and I get it. But at the end of the day, like, Kyrie's just gone off the reservation.
He's been off the reservation for a long time now.
I mean, with the Nets, what do you do here? Like, obviously he's serving the suspension, and then he'll come back and he'll have to do this. But we've already seen people like go after him for this. I know that there were some fans that showed up to Barclays Center the other day wearing like fight anti-Semitism shirts and like sitting front court, and it's like, oh my god, like what is like I don't know how the NBA can get past this at this point.
I really don't either. And honestly, because you said it's so money and talent based, like Adam Silver in the league might actually be forced to take more hands-on action if this actually impacts like the league's numbers and the fan base's perception of the league. So,
which at the end of the day, I have my doubts on, but I still think like something needs to be done here. Like, it's gotten ridiculous. And again, to circle this back to, to the first topic of the night, I don't think Ime Udoka can fix this. Okay. I'm sorry. Listen, like Ime Udoka did a great job fixing the Celtics. This is a goddamn miracle. This is not happening. Like, I'm sorry. This Nets team will not look like this next year. We are going to have like, what's his name again? Joe Harris.
Joe Harris.
Yeah, he's going to be the star of the Brooklyn Nets next year. KD's going to take off for God knows where, whether it's going back to Golden State. Maybe he goes back to, OKC, since they have a young core now and he tries to do something there. But this is not what this team is going to look like next year. And I get the idea that they're trying to bring in, Ime to kind of like, basically like, fan the flames a little bit here. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And like that's my prediction. It's going to blow up. And I like, especially with his track record, it's like, all right, you're bringing this guy in. It's not working.
You're bringing in a clown to fix a clown.
You're bringing in a clown to fix a clown show. It doesn't work. You'd think it would work, but it doesn't. It doesn't. And obviously, the Celtics players don't realize this, because after this has all gone down, there's been, a lot of stuff happening in the wake of this. So two Celtics players in particular, Marcus Smart and then Jaylen Brown, have expressed their opinions about Ime Udoka leaving. Smart basically said, obviously, we wish he was here. We have no control over that. It definitely sucks. I guess it was deemed that whatever happened was not good enough for him to be the coach here, but I guess not enough for him to be a coach anywhere else. Obviously, his name got slandered and slaughtered, and he'll probably never coach again. And a couple months later, now he's possibly going to be the coach of one of our biggest rivals. It's tough. It makes no sense, but we can't control that. And then Jaylen Brown comes out and says, I'm just happy to see a black head coach end up getting another job and ending up on his feet, because we've seen situations where that doesn't happen. Now, obviously, you can make any case with that, but the Celtics apparently aren't happy with this. Like the players, they feel like they kind of got screwed here. And it's like, all right. And I can get where Marcus Smart is coming from, where he goes, it sucks. But at the end of the day, Marcus, I get that you don't work with ownership in the front office, but this was someone on their staff. Okay. Like, I don't know how you would feel if you like found out there was another player on the team going around and talking to your girlfriend or your wife.
Mhm.
I don't think you would like that, to be honest
exactly.
with you.
It's a question of morals at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Too.
So I mean, I'm not. I was I mad when Ime got suspended? Sure, but I was more mad at him for doing something this stupid. I'm like, you were in the NBA Finals this year. Why did you have to screw this up this much?
No, exactly.
So like that's what more pissed me off. And now I'm just like, why are they coming out and saying this like right now, like in the immediate aftermath? Couldn't they have just like done some like Patriot way BS and kind of just like smoothed it over and said like, you know what, we don't have control of this right now. We love and respect Ime, but we have to like, you know, push forward with this season. They could have their own personal gripes, but it's showing right now that they are pissed off by this.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's funny, like you're talking about it from the organizational perspective, right? We also have to consider the Celtics are getting no compensation from the Nets for this. And you can kind of contrast it back to 2013. You know, the Celtics released Doc Rivers. He ultimately went to the Clippers, but we still got a 2015 first round pick.
Yeah.
And part of the issue here is we already had him suspended for a year, and it kind of be viewed upon as, oh, we're doubling down the punishment on him. So like it's kind of a tough spot for the organization too, where we're losing a great asset despite hardships and like a bad incident, but we're still getting nothing out of that too. So it's just a lose all around, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Celtics are in a tough place to really have leverage in this situation, especially since, you know, what the Nets could really just say is like, I mean, I don't think that this Nets team will be around next year, but they could basically say, all right, we'll wait till next year and then we'll pick up Ime. And then, you know, he'll resign, he'll do his thing, and then we'll go from there. But I just don't know, man. This is a whole different ball game. And you know, the Celtics got off to a pretty solid start this year. They look like they're, you know, really bouncing back after their finals loss, and they might be able to have a shot to really go on repeat this year. I like what the team has this year, but, you know, throwing this kind of wrench into this, it's going to be, I don't know, this could really kind of throw them for a bit of a loop here.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how it goes. I mean, I think Mazzulla's doing pretty well personally.
I think so too, and that's what pisses me off about this, because, you know, Marcus and Jalen are coming out and saying this, and it's like, hey, what about this guy? Yeah. Like he's doing a decent enough job. Why you got to throw him under the bus?
He's showing up to work every day, just like Ime did. He's doing his best. You know, I find it interesting.
I think he's doing a damn good job.
He is doing a good job. The only thing I've had a slight problem with him is, like, for example, the Cavs game, the overtime loss. Okay. Like, he didn't call a timeout until like the third quarter, and like it was getting pretty late. But outside of that, he's been doing a pretty fine job, honestly. Yeah.
I really haven't had too many issues with him, and I think that for Jaylen Brown, he's got to realize, all right, like what I'm saying has my words carry a lot of weight here. Mm-hmm. So I can't just like go around saying like, oh, like this willy-nilly. And same thing with Marcus Smart. Like he's usually like the heart and soul of that team. So if you really want to think about it, his statement of saying we have no control over it and it sucks and we're pissed off, that's essentially the pulse of the team right now. It's like, hey, we're pissed off by this decision that Ime got let go. Like that, yeah. That's essentially if you want to really like get an idea of what the team is thinking, that's it right there. And what I'm afraid of is if there's going to be a rift in the locker room now because of them letting Ime go. And maybe they originally thought, oh, this will be a 1-year thing. Ime is going to come back next year, similar to kind of how Alex Cora came off his suspension. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be, back, going back we're going to be back like we never left. Mm-hmm. It was like, all right, sweet. And now this happens and it's like, wait, we're never going to have this guy as our coach again. What's going on here? And I think that, they're like, I can understand, like, they're probably reasonably pissed here.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, like you were saying, like Marcus Smart was quoted basically just saying it doesn't make sense. He feels kind of betrayed by the situation because it's all out of his control. And, Ime just went on to another opportunity. But I really do think that they're going to batten down the hatches and eventually just get tunnel vision and just kind of accept the reality of things. I personally like the fact that this was settled earlier in the season because it's going to allow us to have a better mindset for the playoffs. Like if this scandal surfaced like pre-playoffs, like right before, that would be like a big deal for the team.
Yeah.
So we can at least take some comfort in knowing that we have a lot of time to get over this, but how we're going to do that, how long it's going to take, and what that'll look like, that's all still up in the air.
Yeah, Jake, what worries me about this, though, is that I mean, when the Celtics turned things around kind of towards the second half of last year and they, went into the playoffs and it was like, all right, like, no funny business. We're going to go hard here and we're actually going to try to win a championship. I was like, all right, they're finally getting away from their one core issue. And it's that they were always in their own head.
Yep.
That has always been this Celtics team, like this core of Celtics players. That has always been their issue is that, they get in their own head and they overthink things and, they look way too much into the media. And I was like, all right, they're finally going to move past that. Sweet. And now we get thrown this curveball. And I'm like, all right, like, are they just going to revert back to what they were? And they're going to be like mouthing off in the media. They're all going to be like sour and like this. That's my fear with all this.
I certainly agree, and that's a validated fear. I mean,
Yeah.
you were talking about our fantastic performance in the playoffs, going all the way to the finals
Yeah.
this past season. Like, you got to think too, like this is the best the Celtics have looked in a long time.
Mhm.
You think of the like depth in our bench, like even like the way Peyton Pritchard and Derek White all played like in the playoffs, they were going crazy. And those are guys who are currently getting like 4 minutes a game, like 12 minutes a game, if any time at all, like
Yeah.
during the start of the season. Like we have a solid bench and it's just going to be a problem if we're just tearing ourselves apart from the inside.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, obviously the Celtics team, we're dealing with some injuries to start the year. Rob Williams, who was, one of our key pieces in that finals run, had some injuries early on last year and then was able to come back. In that net series, was able to be a big piece in helping us win and get to the finals where we were at. He's out, from the start of the season. It was about 8 to 12 weeks. He'll be back for like the second half of this year. That's a big loss. And in his place, we ended up bringing in a veteran, Blake Griffin. I know you were a big Blake Griffin guy, and I know you wanted to talk about him and his impact on the team. He's averaging just shy of 3 rebounds per game right now, under 3 points. So it hasn't necessarily been the Blake Griffin that we grew up seeing, dunking over Kias and doing all that stuff. So what are your thoughts on Blake Griffin and his addition on the Celtics team?
I am expecting very soon, and I told you so from my roommates, because when watching Blake Griffin's debut with the Celtics, the first game of the season, I kept saying he's going to do great. Rob Williams is out. This is going to be a time to shine. He's a stretch big. He developed a shot behind the arc. He'll do something. And I'm looking right now at 2.5 points per game, 2.8 rebounds. And
it's just it's like, wow, this guy is washed.
Yeah, he's incredibly washed. And, it kind of hurts my pride a little, but
I mean, dude, I grew up watching Blake Griffin. Like, he was the guy.
Lob City,
No, yeah.
Take it back.
That Lob City Clippers team was one of the most fun things to watch. And honestly, I see that team and I look at, I'm going to kind of compare it to like Bryant basketball. Mm-hmm. There's some very similar elements to that. And it's almost like what Bryant basketball is. And I know we're going off on, I'm on a little bit of a tangent here, but Bryant basketball is like the perfect blend between the Lob City Clippers and the Splash Bros Warriors. Like, that's how I look at Bryant basketball, to where it's high flying, like lob it, throw it in your face, shooting the lights out of the gym. That's what they are. And it's, they're, if I had to like describe it in one style, it's like the old school Phoenix Suns where it was 7 seconds or less offense. Oh, yeah. Like, they are running and gunning and they will tire you out. That's what they look like. And, I miss those Clippers. Like, that was a fun team to watch. And, while they never made it through and won that championship, mm-hmm. It was like, you always knew you were going to turn on Sports Center and see them do something ridiculous.
It was great.
I mean, DeAndre Jordan almost killed Brandon Knight. Like, he almost killed that guy.
Yeah, it's something else.
And then you had CP3 doing his thing. He was awesome. I mean, I miss Chris Paul, like being like that guy.
I really do. And I mean, just bringing it back to Blake Griffin, like it's kind of tough to see and like accept the reality finally that he's washed.
And he's only 33 too. That's the thing.
33. And I think, he's accepted his role on the team. You know, he knows he's a bench player. He didn't even play like in the last game at all. Like, he got 0 minutes. But
it's good though. Here's the thing though. I'm glad that he is accepting his bench role, because there are plenty of star players that don't do that all too well. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of some guys in particular, but some star players, as they get older, they don't want to really admit that I'm not the star guy anymore. They still feel like they're the star, even though they're not producing like one. One guy I can think of, at least in the NFL, Robbie Anderson. He was a great receiver for the Jets, and even in his first few years with the Panthers, then his stats started to kind of like falter and kind of fall off a little bit, but he was still going around like, oh, I'm the top dog. I deserve to be treated like this. And people are like, no, dude, like, you can't just be mouthing off to coaches on the sideline when you're having 27 yards a game. You
Yeah,
can't, like, you can't do that. And I'm glad that for Blake Griffin, he's saying like, all right, I'm not what I once was. I'm not dunking over cars anymore.
Yep.
So this isn't me. And he recognizes that, and he goes, all right, I can't just like do that and be like that guy. So he knows like, all right, I need to be a good, teammate, good veteran. And he does that. Another guy that I've been really impressed with so far, obviously it's been in a minor role, is Noah Vonleh. I'm really impressed with the job that Brad did on getting him. He's been out of the league for, let's see now. He's been out of the league for, he only missed last year. He played over in China.
Yep.
But he's come back to the Celtics, and while his stats weren't great, he's another good guy to have off the bench in that rotation, and he's been really solid. It's a minor piece, but later in the season when things kind of get, when guys start to get kind of like grind down like that, he could be a good guy to look at.
Exactly. He's going in and he's getting some boards, and especially too, like we were talking about with Rob Williams out, there's a lack of a presence in the paint.
Yeah.
There's only so much old man asking for us at this point.
Oh man. Al Horford, he that man is a trooper. He deserves a Purple Heart for all he's done.
This man,
the beating he has taken, he deserves a Purple Heart. My God.
Yeah, something else. But
yeah,
Vonleh's been doing pretty well. I mean, obviously, like you said, it's kind of a similar situation to Blake Griffin, where you kind of accept your role. You're not going to be like a star player or doing anything super crazy, but if you know your role and you keep your head down and you work hard and you stick to what you're expected to do, then you're still contributing to the team in a meaningful way.
Yeah, because Vonleh was he was a first round pick. He was 9th overall taken by the Charlotte Hornets, and his career from the get go really didn't work out. He got traded to the Portland Trailblazers 1 year after his career started, and it was like, and he kind of got bounced around from team to team, and he was probably like, all right, I know what this is going to look like for me. So like he understood, and he was like, all right, this isn't going to really be, for me, unfortunately. And, he went to China, figured some things out there, and now he's back. And it's like, all right, like I'm still going to probably be like that, role player guy off the bench, but he does his job good enough. Now, one guy I'm really liking so far in the Celtics rotation is Malcolm Brogdon. He has really unlocked this team. And while Marcus Smart was great at being like that defensive guy for us, Malcolm Brogdon brings it to another level.
He's been doing pretty well. I saw him. Yeah, I saw him hooping the other night. He was getting some buckets in the Cavs game. I was like, Malcolm Brogdon. He actually is like still like, another role player instance, but he's still like relevant. He can contribute to the team. He's been doing well so far.
Yeah, I mean, for him, it's just like if we had him last year, I think there's no question that we win that championship.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, right now he's averaging 13.6 points per game this season. Last season, with the Pacers, he averaged 19 points per game. Wow. So he's gonna have an impact on the team. I'm interested to see like how that goes. But I think part of it too, like we've been talking about a couple great role players, maybe mid to lower tier players, but the hero ball, the overtime, like fourth quarter of the Cavs game, I was not liking the Celtics hero ball. We really need to hone in on everyone just doing their job. And if you don't have an open shot or a good look, just kick it. And hopefully the next guy can find it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Obviously if there was one thing that you think the Celtics, like if there's like one thing that this Celtics team is going to need to do to be successful this year and make it to that championship and hone in on one part of their game, what is that for you?
I would honestly say just being, playing with your whole heart on both sides of the floor. Sometimes after Jason Tatum or even Jaylen Brown, like they take like a crazy like fadeaway shot, like, and then they just get so defeated. Like we get in our heads too much.
Yeah.
You were saying it earlier. Like you gotta show up ready to play for the whole game. And once it stops going your way, you can't be defeated or change your mindset. It's really a mental game at this point. We have the stats, we have the roster, we have the depth. We just have to go out there and do it. And, it's a long season. There are a lot of games to play. And, we had a lot of tough battles in the playoffs, but we just need to maintain that mental stamina as well.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that for this team in particular, we're going to need to see a return of that defense that we saw last year that was so potent for us. Now, while the Celtics this year, our offense has been on another level. We've been like really just shooting the lights out. We were like the best defensive team in the league last year. Like we really brought that presence, especially throughout the playoffs. And the Warriors were able to expose that a little bit down the stretch, but it was like, all right, we were able to lock down some pretty good teams. And it was like, we understood that. Now with Malcolm Brogdon, that adds another great defender. And I think that we're going to be even better. Now, while our offensive numbers haven't really shown that, Like we've been just scoring a lot more on offense and, really just trying to outscore opponents. I think down the stretch, we're going to need to get back to that, like that defensive presence that we had last year. Rob Williams will obviously help with that.
Yep.
And I think that, in playoff basketball, things kind of do slow down a little bit more. So I think that's, the defense will play a bigger factor at that point.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And, it goes back to fundamentals, even at the highest level in the NBA. Got to play defense. Defense wins games. We've kind of seen the league turn into like an AAU game where it's just, like you said, run and gun and just try and outscore the other team. But we were winning playoff games because of our defense.
Yeah.
So that's really what we're going to need to continue here, like you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jake, before we do go, I want to talk to you about, I want to shift things over to the MLB and talk about the World Series, because it has been quite the show so far. I mean, it's currently 3-2 in favor of the Astros. They are one game away from winning it all. They're going back to Houston tonight. And well, not tonight, but they're going back to Houston to play. And, Houston is trying to win their first World Series since 2017, trying to prove for once and for all that the trash can banging had no effect on them, on them winning those championships. And I'd like to call some BS on that. That is ridiculous. You can hear the trash can bangings and just see the results that come right after it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this World Series obviously has had its own storylines of its own. The Phillies, the Phillies ended up getting no hit one game. Then they scored 7 runs in another. And it's like, it's been pretty wild so far. Bryce Harper is what I really want to talk about. He's had a postseason for the ages. I don't know if you've seen some like his play, but he has been off the charts. It has just been incredible home run after another. I like, if you've seen the clips inside Citizens Bank Park, that place is rocking right now like it was funny. Like Bryce Harper, he got offered like a 13-year, like $300+ million contract. Mm-hmm. And after winning the National League Championship Series, the GM of the team, he walked up to Harper and he ended up saying, "I don't know how this is possible, but we underpaid you." Like he ended up saying, like, "You have done so much for us," because they haven't been to the World Series since 2009. And they had been out of the playoffs for like 11 years. So like the fact that Bryce Harper, and this was kind of a fluke thing, like because of without expanded playoffs, the Phillies wouldn't even be in this position right now. They would have been out of the playoffs, which is wild. So I mean, that's just what postseason baseball does, though. It just breeds. It's not necessarily who has the most talented team. It's like there are some leagues where that's the case. Like you look at the Warriors, like they're an incredibly talented team. You have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, all those, Jordan Poole, all those great guys that do what they do. And it's like, all right, it makes sense that they would go on and win a championship.
Yeah.
And same with the Celtics. They were incredibly loaded. So it makes sense that they're in that position. MLB kind of has that. Sometimes the best teams will go on and win it. But you look at the LA Dodgers this year, they had, I think 100, how many wins they had this year? I think it was like 110. Dodgers standings. I forget what it was, but it broke some records.
Was a lot.
It broke records.
It was a lot.
It was 111 wins. It was 111 wins this year, and they got knocked out almost immediately. And it was like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
And it's just the fact that in the MLB, there are teams that maybe aren't regular season teams, but you get them in the postseason and they just go. And that's what the Phillies did. They went in and they could not be stopped. They took down the Braves, they took down the Padres, and now they're in this position. Obviously, they have their backs against the wall here. And as a New Englander, I would never consider myself ever to root for Philly, except in this situation. I hate the Astros with a burning passion. And I'm glad that they beat the Yankees, but I want them to go down hard right now. I really do not want them to win another championship.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much going on. And like you were saying too, just Harper's impact is so significant. And like it almost like casts the rest of the team to the side to an extent. Obviously, everyone else is putting in work, but he's had 13 RBIs in only 14 playoff games. And like, why are the Astros still pitching to him? People are asking that question. And it's just incredible that they're still even giving him a chance to get in the batter's box. But hey, he's a lefty.
Yeah.
Keep doing it, buddy. I love to see it.
No, exactly. I mean, and then there's the whole situation. I don't know if you saw this about Lance McCullers tipping his pitches. This was an interesting situation, but it was in the game where the Phillies ended up winning 7-0. And Lance McCullers is a pitcher for the Astros. and he was just letting up home runs after home run after home run. I believe it was a World Series record 5 home runs in a single start. Like no guy has ever done that before. And it was like, wow, he just got and some people just and some guys just have that day and it's like, wow, you just got shelled. Like, and it's just like that's just what happens sometimes. But what people realize is that when he was throwing his fastball, his glove was a little further out as opposed to when he was throwing his breaking ball pitches. His leg and certain parts of his body were like skewed a little bit differently. Bryce Harper recognized that apparently, hit a home run, and then Alec Boehm, who has made some headlines around Philly, he's getting ready to come up to the plate, and Harper calls him over and he goes, "Hey man, I got to tell you something." And he basically tells him like, "Hey, if he does this, it's gonna be a breaking ball." And the other thing that those guys know too is that for some reason he's afraid to throw his fastball to like left-handed hitters, even though it's 96 miles an hour. He'll only throw it to righties. So he also might have just told them, "Hey, he doesn't throw the fastball to anyone but righties. So just be ready for a heater." And he lit it up, and he also hit a home run. It's ridiculous. So there's been a ton of storylines. It's been a fun World Series, fun postseason. Haven't been able to watch as much of it as I'd like to, but it's definitely been an interesting one.
Definitely. There's a lot going on, and it's interested to see how it turns out.
Yeah.
I know you have you want the Phillies to win. You hate the Astros right now, but
yes,
like objectively, who do you think is going to take it all?
I mean, I have to look at the pitching matchups. If it would just flat out on the table right now, I think it would be the Astros just because of where it's at. I mean, I have to take a look at the pitching matchups. Let me take a look at what's coming up in the standings right now. We got Zach Wheeler versus Framber Valdez. Valdez is interesting. I wanted to talk about storylines. Framber Valdez is actively using a foreign substance right now to get a better grip on the ball. A guy that I had on the show before, Joe LaFlamme, better known as Hey Kami on TikTok, he points this stuff out all the time, and he is just showing that Framber Valdez, he's going to his hair. He has like hair product or some goop in there, and he is like lathering up this baseball and getting his breaking ball to spin and breaks more than it actually really should, like according to physics. And on the other side, we have Zach Wheeler. He has a 7.20 ERA in the postseason, which is not very good, and Valdez has a 1.42, which is electric. Now, I think I got to say, if Valdez can go the distance, I got to give it to the Phillies here. I mean, you got the lefty matchup that should neutralize Harper, I would think, in a little bit. And then, guys like Schwarber like that too. So if Zach Wheeler looks like he did with the Mets when he was like that guy and he was like on and he was kind of like, almost a borderline ace, maybe a 2 guy, then the Phillies could have a shot here. And then it's game 7. And honest to God, I can tell you, no one knows what's happening in a game 7 because any guy could pitch. I could pitch. Who knows?
Yeah,
but
can happen.
Game 6 right now, it's got to lean Houston all the way. And I think that Houston will probably finish it off.
Yeah, the lead is significant. I mean, people have blown 3-1 leads before.
Yeah.
3-2. It's getting down to the wire.
Yeah, it is getting
intended.
Jake, it is getting down to the wire. We're gonna get down to the wire in just a little bit here. But first, obviously, we got a pretty interesting weekend coming up. It's Parents Weekend here at Bryant University. Your folks coming out?
No, unfortunately not.
Okay. Yeah, no, I know my folks are coming out. We're going to go see the football game, tailgating, all that good stuff. So I'm excited for all that. Man, like I know we were talking about your birthday and all that stuff early on the beginning of the show. How was your day and stuff?
It was good. I had a lot of stuff going on. I had to work in the admission office and whatnot. But we went out to Thirsty Beaver. You were there, Yeah,
it was a good time.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Well, Jake, obviously, it is getting to that point in the night. We are officially now down to the wire, which means that we're going to wrap up what we talked about in this show and send all you beautiful people on your way. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching this episode. Thank you to Jake Marchand for coming back on the show. Love to have him. Love him for his NBA takes and all he does. So, Jake, thank you so much for coming back.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So on the show today, we talked about Ime Udoka leaving the Boston Celtics for the Brooklyn Nets, Kyrie Irving being suspended for his anti-Semitic comments, and just that whole whirlwind. That is just, that's just a grenade. Like I really don't like touching this stuff, but it is what it is. And then we also talked about the Celtics players being upset with the organization in the wake of this whole incident with Ime. We gave our thoughts on that and so much more. We talked a little bit about the World Series, and all in all, it was a great episode. If you guys are interested in watching this show live, we are streaming on WJMF Radio 88.7 HD2 Smithfield, Providence. But from Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
I'm Jake Marchand.
And we hope you guys have a great evening, great day, wherever you guys are watching this episode. Take care and peace out.